What's up, everybody? We are back with the fresh checklist from 2023 Bowman Chrome, which is set to release on September 13th. I'm going to be going through my personal chase rankings for the guys who have autos in this product. For those of you that are unfamiliar, Bowman Chrome is the gambler's release. That's usually the cheapest, and there's a reason why. It's because there's usually not many sure things in the Chrome releases. They tend to be filled with 17-year-old international prospects who either haven't played yet or have only played one summer in the Dominican Summer League. And I can tell you that from past experiences, those samples are very hard to trust. You can look at 2021 Chrome, and it was Christian Hernandez, Carlos Colmenares, Luis Rodriguez, all those guys almost immediately flamed out when they got to the States. So caution to those who are buying this. It is a product that for the most part you're buying these young toolsy prospects and just crossing your fingers that they get the most out of those tools as they get older, because none of them are a sure thing. But it's always a more fun release to me because, again, you pay less because you're taking a bigger risk, and some of them may hit big, some of them may not hit at all. But it's definitely a fun release, so we're going to go ahead and get into my top 15 plus some honorable mentions for you. Number one, the man that needs no introduction, Ethan Salas, the 17-year-old catcher for the Padres. He's 6'2", 185 pounds. As you can see, the projected tools are 55 hit, 60 game power, 60 raw power, 40 speed, 60 fielding, and a future value of 55. He was a number one international signing. He got a $5.6 million bonus from the Padres. Brother of Jose Salas, who signed with the Marlins and was traded to the Twins. So he has that same, a lot of people loved Jose Salas because of the baseball background. They're a baseball family, very high baseball IQ, part of the reason that he's been fast-tracked. And the Padres have been super aggressive with him. He hit pretty well in low A, as you see, 267 with 9 home runs and 220 plate appearances. Doesn't sound insane, but when you factor in his age, which we do in Bowman, that's really going to drive him up the list. A lot of times if you see it was very rare that you see 17-year-olds make A-ball debuts. When they do, they don't tend to hit for a lot of power because they're still so young, facing that, pitching that they've never seen before. But for 9 home runs and 220 plate appearances at age 17, he obviously then got the call to high A, got the call to double A. Didn't hit particularly well in the small samples in high A or double A before he was shut down last week, or it might have been this week, but last week. With a knee sprain. But again, this is the prospecting world. His card value is going to be driven more by the fact that he could debut at age 18. It's more driven by that than it actually is the results, which sounds crazy. But again, even though he struggled, he gets the obvious benefit of the doubt being a 17-year-old in double A. That's literally outrageous. He's been flying up prospect boards. Some people have him as a top 10 overall prospect already. I'm not quite that aggressive. The tools for the age are great. Again, the power that he possesses at 17 years old, he projects to be a plus fielder. He's just got a lot of really interesting tools, for someone his age. The tools are great, and I don't think there's any doubt that he's going to be the top chase in this product. And if anyone's prices are going to compete with Ethan Salas, which I don't think they will, it's going to be Joendry Vargas of the Los Angeles Dodgers. As you'll see, he's also a 17-year-old, 6'4", 175-pound shortstop. He was the number 3 international signing in the same period as Salas. We'll get to who number 2 was in a few minutes. But Vargas got a little over $2 million to sign with the Dodgers, and he's really an exciting prospect. Another 17-year-old, as you'll see, is the theme for 2023 Chrome. 6'4", wiry, but he's got tools for days. He's very smooth for his size, but as his big frame continues to fill out, there's definitely the chance that he could move off shortstop and have to be moved to third. But his arm is plus, his power is plus. They're going to stick him at short for as long as they possibly can. You look at the Dominican Summer League numbers: 328 with 7 home runs and 19 stolen bases in 208 plate appearances. 149 WRC plus, just really good. 201 ISO, really good for someone his age. Much like Josue DePaula of the 2023 Bowman release, you see that walk to K rate is kind of what pops your eye. Is just about as many walks as strikeouts. On-base percentage 423, slugging percentage 529, plate discipline. It's all very mature for his age. You don't see a lot of guys have the plate discipline and the power at that young age, and that's kind of what made Josue DePaula such a chase in the last product. Joendry Vargas, very similar. Big guy, projects for big power, but also has that plate discipline that you look for. I think he's a really exciting toolsy prospect. He will probably be a top 3 chase across the board for everybody. Number 3, another guy like Salas, high baseball IQ. His dad was actually a minor league player and is now a scout. And we're talking about Rayner Arias of the San Francisco Giants. Another 17-year-old, 6'2", 185 pounds, plays the outfield. You'll see the projected tool comps of 50 hit, 55 game power, 60 raw power, 50 speed, 55 fielding, and a future value of 45 plus. This guy just has a good idea of what he's doing at the plate. You remember how I just said like a minute ago how you can't trust Dominican Summer League data. But sometimes the data is so good that you can't really ignore even like the smallest sample, and that's the Rayner Arias case here. He only played 16 games in the Dominican Summer League, so we're talking about probably the smallest sample on this list of guys who have actually played. But if you take a look at him, in 76 plate appearances, 414 batting average, 4 homers, 4 stolen bases, a 1.333 OPS, a 379 ISO, and the most outrageous one probably is the 230 WRC+. I know the sample's tiny, but these are video game numbers. Like I said with Vargas, you like to see those high walk rates. Arias had a 19.7% walk rate and 14.5% K rate. Just incredible discipline for someone his age. If he did this over a 50-game sample, I probably could be talking about him over Vargas. That's how ridiculous the 16-game sample is. But because he's played so many fewer games and because Vargas was the more highly touted prospect, as far as the international signing period, he's going to stay ahead of him for now. But I think Giants fans should be excited about what they saw from this kid. If he's able to transfer these tools over to stateside, he's going to be really special. All right, now we'll get into one of my favorite guys on the checklist. If this were strictly a prospect ranking and wasn't based on card value, Samuel Basallo would be my number 2 prospect after Ethan Salas. It's just that I don't know if the hobby can handle the top 2 chases in a product being catcher. Although he is 6'3", he's listed at 180. I've seen him live. There's no way he's under 250. He is a big boy. He probably profiles more to play first base or DH. And spoiler alert, the Baltimore Orioles have a catcher. So I don't know how much stock we can put into him being a catcher. I think he's probably more likely a first baseman. But when you look at the projected tools here of 40 hit, 60 game power, 70 raw power, 20 speed, 45 fielding, and a future value of 40 plus. What he's done this year is amazing. 19 years old in high A, 17 home runs in about 100 games between A and high A. Playing against people older than him. You see the WRC plus of 149 in A ball and so far 160 in high A. Both incredibly good. For someone his age who's a power hitter, you usually see the K rates in like the 25 to 30% range. His have never really gone over 20. He pairs that with a good walk rate at each level so far. Currently in high A, he's got a 16.5% walk rate and only a 17.5% K rate. But that's a good start for your first 100 plate appearances. Like I said, 19-year-olds who are this big and are hitting for plus power usually don't see K rates that low. So it's definitely an encouraging. I don't see why the hit tool couldn't be average. It's projected at 40, but based on the plate discipline and the ability to find, make contact, I wouldn't be surprised if he was an average hitter. The power is plus. He's not going to offer you any speed. But if you're someone who likes to chase power and you like the home runs, this is your guy. He's an absolute beast, and I think he's just yet another good prospect that the Baltimore Orioles have. All right, we'll get into my number 5, Felnin Celesten of the Seattle Mariners. He's a 17-year-old shortstop, switch hitter, who is 6'1", 175 pounds. He's the guy I was talking about earlier, who I said was the number 2 international signing in between Ethan Salas and Joendry Vargas. The Mariners gave him $4.7 million. So that kind of tells you what they think. He's one of these guys who doesn't have any stats or, scout grades for us to go off of. And if you remember in 2023 Bowman, I was high on Emmanuel Bonilla of the Toronto Blue Jays. And part of the reason is that when you don't have any data to go off of these guys, I know it sounds crazy, but signing bonuses matter. I mean, at least no one's going to throw $4.7 million at someone that they don't think is going to be a special talent. So just the trust that the Mariners have to give him that whole bonus pool should make him, pretty high on the list. Unfortunately, he hurt his hamstring at the start of the year. He has not been able to make his pro debut yet, but there's a lot of buzz around this kid. Like I said, switch hitter. He's got good feel. He's got good power. He's billed as a true, 5-tool player. I think from what I've seen, the speed, the raw power, and the arm are all plus. He's just the definition of toolsy. Based on the tools alone, he's probably going to be a top 3 chase. But I gave Vargas and Arias kind of like a slight bump just because I've seen them do it, even though it's been a limited sample size. But Celesten's up there, and I expect him to be a huge chase for a lot of people. He could be top 3 in prices on release day. He's a really exciting young guy in an organization who's had success recently with some of these international guys, Lazaro Montes, Michael Arroyo, Gabriel Gonzalez. The Mariners have been doing a good job. So I can't wait to see him play because he's definitely someone that piques my interest. Number 6, let's go. I'm going to call him Brando Mayea. On his card, it is Brandon Mayea. I've heard him referred to both ways. All the stats, you look at Baseball Reference, look at Fangraphs, it says Brando Mayea, so I'm calling him Brando. He's another guy who was a big signing. He got $4.35 million from the Yankees. You can see the projected tools, and like a couple of guys I showed already, and there's another one coming up. The ability's there for all 5 tools. We will see with his development which of those he will actually get to, but the plus speed is real. You see projected 55 hit, 55 game power, 50 raw power, 60 speed, 60 fielding, and a 45 future value. Because of that plus speed, which is real, it's listed at plus, but I mean, he moves. Plus is not out of the realm of possibility. He has, between that speed and his good instincts, he's a plus defender, so he's probably going to stick in center field. He hits the ball hard for someone who doesn't really project to be a big guy. You see 5'11", 175. I think that's probably the tool holding him back, if there is one, is that his power might never be more than average. But I think he can work on the swing, add some loft. There's no reason to think the power couldn't get above average. Again, limited sample, like a lot of these guys, 170 plate appearances in the Dominican Summer League, 276, 3 home runs, and 22 stolen bases. There's that, plus speed I alluded to. 12.9% walk rate, 15.9% K rate. Great K rate. You see the patient approach there. Nothing in the stats that really makes you say, wow, but he's just a really well-rounded player. He does everything well. And I think you chase him in the hopes that he unlocks that extra step up in his power, because he could be pretty special if he does that. Number 7, Luis Guanipa of the Atlanta Braves. And stop me if you've heard this before. Exciting tools, too small of a sample size. Kind of a homer pick here. I am a Braves fan. I will certainly be chasing him. I'm probably higher on him than most. He's got a similar tool set as Mayea. You see 55 hit, 55 game power, 55 raw power, 70 speed, 60 fielding, future value 45. Very, very similar tools across the board. The tough thing with Guanipa was the consistency. I can tell you as someone who followed him, the first couple weeks of the season, it was like he was looking like the next Ronald Acuna. Obviously, no one's the next Ronald Acuna, but that's how he looked at the beginning of the Dominican Summer League, just batting 300, home runs, stolen bases, fun, young, flashy player, and you get the hopes up, and then he went for almost an entire month batting under 200. You see he finished 238 with 4 home runs, 20 stolen bases, 11% walk rate, 20% K rate. Because like I said, the data is tough to trust. I won't put too much stock in the struggles. I'm going to base this chase off the fact that I saw all of those tools work together for a month, and I know what they could be. And very similarly to what I said with Mayea, if he manages to get all those tools to click, and let's say it's plus power and it's plus speed, I mean, that's a serious hobby combo as far as card values go. You want to throw in that I trust the Braves at developing prospects, and I think that this is a kid, you hold on to his cards and you just trust that when he comes stateside, the Braves can get all those tools to click at once, because like a lot of those guys, if they get them to click, he has the ability to be, just a really good player on a team that, like I said, they're great at developing prospects, and I trust them. Some of these guys, they have really raw tools, but they play for teams that I'm like, are they going to get them there? Trust the Braves are going to get them there. Trust that, those ebbs and flows, he'll be able to hone that in and keep the tools going for longer than a month at a time. And if he does, I think it's really special. Number 8, we'll go Welbyn Francisca of the Cleveland Guardians, another 17-year-old switch hitter, 5'8", 148 pounds. He's a shortstop. You see the projected tools: 70 hit, 45 game power, 45 raw power, 50 speed, 50 fielding, 45 future value. I like this guy. I'm a big believer in hit tools. You know that if you follow me. I'm not the type of person who invests in guys with a 30 hit tool and 70 power and just pray that they figure out how to make contact. These are my guys. The Adel Amadors, the Welbyn Franciscas. You see he projects for plus hit, but below average power. I think the one thing that's a positive, if you see that in the 40 games in the Dominican Summer League, he did hit 3 home runs, which sounds like it's nothing. But for a 5'8", 17-year-old who's projecting for below average power, It's not zero, like you'll see some of these guys do put up. The ISO was 184, which again is good, especially for someone his size and age. So the hope here is that he's able to unlock a little more of that power. But either way, you see the 144 WRC plus. I mean, that's great. 6 triples, 419 OBP. He's a step below the Mayeas and the Guanipas to me because there is a bigger question mark on if he will ever get to average power, where those guys it seems more likely. But Francisca's a great hitter. This is what the Guardians do. If you look back, Jose Ramirez is one example that comes to mind. Brian Rocchio. I mean, they drafted Lindor, so he's a little bit different. But they find these, especially in the international pool, they tend to find these high IQ baseball players in the middle infield who just have a great understanding of the strike zone, who are able to, make consistent hard contact. And I think Francisca is on the right team for developing those tools that he has. And like I said, while the power is a little bit below average, he's shown some promise and, as far as the ISO and the home run. So if he's able to get to average power, I think he could also be another great player. Number 9, we're going to go Alfredo Duno of the Cincinnati Reds, age 17, 6'2", 210-pound DH. Remember back when I said that if you like power, you should chase Samuel Basallo? Well, if you want someone similar who might be a little cheaper, you can go with Alfredo Duno. He was actually the number 4 international prospect in this class. He's an interesting guy for me, and I expect many people are going to be a lot higher on him than I am. You see the 303 batting average, 6 home runs in 45 games. Not a speed guy, but 6 for 6 on stolen bases. He moves pretty decent for his size. 153 WRC plus, really good. 19.5% walk rate. Just something you love to see from a 17-year-old. He's been working on his approach after there have been a lot of swing and miss concerns when he was signed. The stat line looks great. Here's my concern. When he was signed, he was originally thought to be a defense-first catcher. He had a plus arm, move well behind the plate. He got a lot of great reviews on his footwork and his framing. He's 45 games into his pro career. He has DH'd 45 times. I don't know if there's a reason. I don't know if there could be like a minor nagging injury of some kind. I'd like to think that they're working on developing his defense, but seeing a 17-year-old be relegated to DH so early on kind of scares me. Again, I don't know that he can't play catcher because, like I said, it was supposed to be a great tool of his, but you run the risk that he's just a big DH with a below-average hit tool and plus power, and I just don't know how far the hobby love goes for that. So I'm kind of on the fence about him, like the tools, like the player. Not entirely sure what the Reds' plan is for him, so that kind of slid him down a little bit, but I won't be expected at all if he's, in the 5, 6, 7 range for a lot of people's chases. All right. We're going to get into number 10, Luis Lara of the Milwaukee Brewers. 18-year-old switch hitter, 5'7", 155 pounds. Speaking of, like I mentioned, Samuel Basallo on the last slide, when I said if this wasn't card-related, Basallo would be my number 2 overall prospect. Luis Lara might be my number 3 overall prospect. I love him. You see, he's 5'7", 155 pounds. Projected 60 hit tool, 45 game power, 45 raw power, 50 speed, 55 fielding, and a 40-plus future value. Like I said with Francisca, I tend to gravitate more towards the guys with good hit tools where the power may develop later. I have Francisco one spot higher because I think the home run and the ISO for his age looks more likely that he can get to that 45 power grade. Lara, I don't think ever will. You see not only the 4 career home runs and over 500 plate appearances, but the ISOs are really low. I don't want to discredit the fact that the Brewers have moved him aggressively. He's only 18 years old, and he is in high A, which, so he's moving real quick. And that's thanks to his hit tool and his speed. You see the averages, great walk to strikeout ratio in A ball. You see the 12.3% walk rate to 14.5% K rate. He's a patient hitter. He hits strikes when they're thrown. I just don't know that the card market will ever give him the respect if that power doesn't come. He's a chase to me because of how impressive he's been for his age and how good I think that hit tool is. And, obviously the Brewers believe in him because they are moving him up pretty quickly through the system. But I think that the lack of power might cap his overall card market. So that's the reason for the slide down to 10. Number 11, Keiner Delgado of the New York Yankees, 19 years old, another switch hitter, 5'7", 145 pounds. Here's a guy who kind of came out of nowhere for me. You'll see he doesn't have scout grades. He's not nearly as big of a name as far as international signings as Brando Mayea was for the Yankees. But what he's done so far in the Dominican Summer League and the Complex League is really impressive. You wouldn't expect power, considering I said he was 5'7", 145 pounds. But you see he has 8 home runs in 239 plate appearances in the Complex League to go with 36 stolen bases. The numbers from the DSL, like I said, and the Complex are really similar stolen bases. You see the stolen bases, the average, the ISO numbers are really good, 196 and 192. You see the speed ratings, both really high. The speed looks like it's plus based on the speed ratings and the stolen bases. Like I said, we don't have, scout grades at all, but you can kind of base it off that. A 2.07 walk to strikeout rate in the Dominican Summer League, 24.4% walk, 11.8% K. That's kind of ridiculous. The WRC plus 178 in the DSL, 138 in the Complex League. These are the stats where if he was a big name signing, you would be like, this guy's top 5. No brainer chase. I think he's going to fly under the radar because he's not a huge name that I hear mentioned a lot. But considering the sample size of a lot of these guys that we're seeing on here, he's been able to do it in 2 stops compared to 1. A lot of these guys have only played in 1 league. I will say I knock the age a little bit. He's 19 years old. I like to see the Dominican Summer League guys be 17, maybe 18 in the Complex. Like I said, Luis Lara already went through A and is in high A at 18. So Keiner Delgado is 19. He's still in the Complex League. So I hope that the Yankees start moving him more aggressively because the results have been really impressive so far. I think he's a great hold. I don't expect him to be one of the most expensive names on release, so he might be a great buy early on or a good fallback if you decide you want to chase Brando Mayea. You buy in on the Yankees, and I think he's someone that you could hit on accident chasing Mayea that could end up being as good of a prospect. I think he's a very interesting prospect here. I kind of slide him in at 11 just because we don't know too much about him, but what he's done so far is really impressive, and he definitely is worth going after if he's cheap. All right, number 12. Zack Gelof of the Oakland Athletics, the MLB Oakland Athletics, 23 years old, 6'3", 205 pounds. Probably one of my favorite players on this whole checklist. No longer a prospect. As you see, he's already up to 200 plate appearances in the MLB. Really came on strong in AAA this year and played so well that he kind of forced the A's hand into bringing him up. You'll see he's got 10 homers and 10 stolen bases and is batting .275 as a pro. Really solid player. You see projected 45 hit, 50 game power, 50 raw power, 50 speed, 50 field. Just fill it up with 50s across the board. Like I said, really solid player. Strikes out a decent amount, but also draws walks. I think that 45 hit tool is probably fair. And then the power, speed, fielding, he's just good. He's an average to above average at everything. He does everything right. He's a good baseball player. Obviously, the knock here is in terms of card value is that he is 200 plate appearances into the MLB. You miss that call-up bubble. Many players, their cards will never be as expensive as the day they are called up. And because you miss that little window with his autos, I think you have to temper your expectations as far as his card prices. But because he is so good and he's playing so well at the moment, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a popular chase. I think the product is just more about gambling on the young guys. But if you want the steady production, this is your guy. I said similar when I did the 2023 Bowman ranks. I had Edward Julian as a top 10 chase. And my argument was, he's not sexy because he's already in the MLB. But if you're someone who's just going after the best player in a release, there's no reason that these guys' cards might come out priced low because they're not as fun to chase because they're already in the MLB. But they're great players. So he's someone to put on the radar. There's another one of them coming up that if you don't care about the age and you just want who's going to be the best MLB player, I think this is a guy that you need to look at. All right, number 13, we're going to go Marco Vargas of the now New York Mets. He came over to the Mets in the David Robertson deal with another guy who's on this checklist in Ronald Hernandez. So he will be wearing Marlins gear on his card because that's the way Bowman does it, as we know. It's the hit tool for Vargas. Doesn't project for average power below, but he is 6 foot. Maybe they can find a way to use that frame and get some more power out of him. But the hit tool is what we're after here because it is plus. If you look at his numbers from before the trade, they were great. Between the Dominican Summer League in 2022 and the Complex League this year, he had a 139 and a 144 WRC plus. Those are great marks, especially for someone his age. More walks than strikeouts, something you love to see out of a guy. The Mets like him as they've already put him in A-ball. So it's a small sample, but he's batting 308 in his first week or so there. So he doesn't look overmatched. The consistency of the walk to strikeout ratio here is impressive. As you see with Miami, more walks and strikeouts in the DSL. He had, in the complex league before he got traded, 23.5% walk to 13.6% strikeout. I mean, that's incredible. It's you don't see, consistently down the board walk to strikeout ratios over 1 the way you have with Marco Vargas at each stop he's made so far. And like I said, I think the Mets like him. His plate discipline should help him climb up the ranks fairly quickly. He's a player that didn't get talked about a ton. When the Mets acquired Drew Gilbert and Luis Angel Acuna, I felt like him and Ryan Clifford were kind of like under the radar, whereas they're going to be a lot bigger gets than people realize they are. And if the Mets are able to develop him into a plus hitter with average power, average speed, I think that's the goal. He's out of Miami where hitting prospects go to die. I no longer buy Miami prospects. So I think this trade really helped his stock, and he's a player that I like a lot. Number 14, Justyn-Henry Malloy of the Detroit Tigers. Another one, like Marco Vargas I just mentioned, will be in the wrong uniform. He will be wearing his Braves uniform in his first. But like Zack Gelof, he's another guy that I absolutely love, but he slides down the list because of his age, proximity to the MLB, all that good stuff. Unlike Gelof, he has yet to make his debut, which is shocking given the state of the Tigers lineup. But it is the Miggy Farewell Tour, and Malloy isn't particularly good at defense, so I think it's more so the DH spot is blocked. That's probably the reason why he hasn't been up yet. But you see the tools. Projected 45 hit, 50 game power, 60 raw power, 40 speed, 35 field, future value of 40 plus. He's just a great hitter. You see he really made jumps in the power. You see the home run total just, went up a lot in AAA this year. The ISO really popped this year. K rate stays consistently in the mid-20s. His walk rates are really good, 18.4 this year. That's a great ratio. You look at the WRC plus at each level. I mean, down the board, 126, 144, 125, 136, 140. The guy just hits. He's just a really good hitter. That's all there is to it. I think he's probably an average hit tool, probably has plus power, but he's probably going to have to DH. You see he's listed as a third baseman and an outfielder. He plays a little left field, a little third base. He's not great at either one of them. So he doesn't offer you anything in the way of speed either. But he's a great player. I do miss him as a Braves fan. He was probably blocked in Atlanta anyways. But I mentioned earlier that Gelof's card prices take a hit because you missed that call-up bubble. Justyn-Henry Malloy has not been called up. So if we're lucky, we will have a chance to hit that still. The only problem is I don't think we will be. It is September 7th today. I think he's called up before release day on the 13th. I know that that's a bold prediction because we're only 6 days away. But I've been wrong before. I've been projecting him to get called up for the last 6 months. And it is the Tigers, so you never know what they're going to do. I slide him up a little bit if he hasn't made his debut yet before this product releases. But I have a sneaking suspicion that he's on his way right now. Number 15, we're going to go Cristofer Torin of the Arizona Diamondbacks, 18 years old, 5'10", 155 pounds. Like a lot of these guys, you can just look above to the rest of my list. Another guy who's just the type of baseball player I like. You see the tools, projected 70 hit, 40 game power, 40 raw power, 40 speed, 50 fielding, future value of 45 plus. Just like Welbyn Francisca and Marco Vargas, it's the hit tool. He's in the same boat as Luis Lara, kind of, where I think he hits the ball a little bit harder than Luis Lara, and he is a little bigger, so there's a chance he grows into power, but the power is just not the tool that is flashing here. As you see, he only has 4 home runs in his career, but his walk to strikeout ratios are insane. When you look at 2022 Dominican Summer League, he batted .333. 2023, before being promoted, he was in the Complex League. He was batting .320. Look at down at the bottom left there, 18.3% walk to 9.9% K, and then 16.7% walk to 7.1% K. It's outrageous. I mean, I said that you don't see walk to strikeout ratios like Marco Vargas's, but I mean, his are almost 2-to-1. It's pretty crazy. So I keep him on the list just because that the ability to have a plus hit tool is something that's really rare, especially in someone who's 18 years old. It's pretty insane. You see They have flipped in A-ball, the strikeout rate and the walk rate. So that's why I dropped him down a little on my list. He was ahead of Marco Vargas, but he's struggled a little bit with A-ball. It's a small sample, but that dip in the walk decay and the average and the ISO leads me to believe that there's a possibility that he's outmatched so far in A-ball. But the speed is better than the scout grade suggests. I think he's got a plus hit tool, above average speed. He's not going to blow you away with the power, but he's athletic. I think his skill set plays. He's a guy who I think is a better baseball player than his card prices will indicate, which are exactly the type of guys I like to target when they're cheap. And I think that he's going to be another one on this release. He's not going to be expensive. He'll be a fun one to chase. I think he fits that mold where you just hold him and hope one of those, power tools or something comes out of nowhere. Like I said, he does swing hard for his size. So that's kind of the hope with him. You take the plus hit, and then you just hope that something else goes with it. Now I'll get into my honorable mentions. Brayler Guerrero, Tampa Bay. He's another guy. He would have been top 15 for me. He was a good international prospect, but he got hurt, so his sample of games he's played has been really small, but he's someone worth watching. Kennedy Corona, the outfielder for the Houston Astros. He's a guy who projects he's supposed to be just a speed guy, but then all of a sudden he hit 20 home runs this season out of nowhere. So maybe he does have some power, but again, 23-year-old outfielder. As you'll see, a lot of these guys, part of the reason that I like Bowman Chrome is because you chase those 17, 18-year-old prospects. I like a lot of these guys. I like Kennedy Corona. Carlos De La Cruz has probably some of the best power on this list besides Basallo, 6'8" outfielder for the Phillies. Again, when you get into these 23-year-old guys, I left Joey Ortiz off the list of the Orioles. He's also a great prospect. I think people will chase 25-year-old prospect. Just not my cup of tea. I like chasing the younger guys in Chrome. It's part of the fun of the product. So I would say Brayler Guerrero is a good one. Ruben Santana. A lot of people are going to be higher on Davison de los Santos than me, another guy that has just extreme power. I don't trust the hit tool. He can't play defense. I'm terrified of his hit tool. Ruben Santana, though, he's a good, toolsy athletic third baseman for the Diamondbacks. Brian Rincon of the Phillies he's a high hit tool, above average speed with low power, but he's actually hit like 8 home runs this year in 80 games, even though he's projected for 30 power. So you put a pin in Brian Rincon. If he's able to add power to go with that hit tool, he could be special. Jacob Raymer is going to be popular. Dylan O'Ray, he has some of the most insane, if you go look at his WRC plus and his walk to strikeout ratios, his OBP is like over 500 at each level. He has yet to hit a home run. I think that's probably going to cap his card value, but if you want to see someone who can get on base, go take a look at his numbers. They're pretty good. Camilo Diaz, he was the international signing for the Astros this year. He was okay in limited time in the Dominican Summer League. Another guy that, because they're so young, you put a pin in him. Leonardo Bernal. Like I said, a lot of this release is you just got to take your chances on guys. A lot of people will go for, the Justyn-Henry Malloys, the Gelofs, the more sure things, and I can't blame them, but I tend to gravitate towards the 17, 18-year-olds. Like I said, it's more fun. The one person that was left off this was Sebastian Walcott of the Texas Rangers. He is actually getting a first Chrome non-auto, but will not have an auto. So the bad thing about that is that a lot of these guys like Gelof and Henry Malloy, De Los Santos, Lara, they're all in the same boat where they had color in 2023. So when their auto comes out in 2023 Chrome, it's going to be a first auto because the year of the release is the same. What happens now to Sebastian Walcott is his first non-auto is in 2023 Chrome. There's a very good chance that his first auto is going to be in 2024 Bowman because it's very unlikely that they're going to put a non-draftee in 2023 Bowman draft. Just not a thing that we see happen. So Sebastian Walcott's going to be yet another player. He's going to fall into that Jackson Merrill, Brady House kind of thing where their auto isn't a true first. So we'll see what that does to the market in the long run eventually when he does get an auto. But I would say that that's really my only beef with this product checklist is that I know that a lot of people have been waiting a long time for Sebastian Walcott, and we pretty much just got the stamp of being guaranteed that he's not going to have a true first auto. But he'll still be fun to chase. He'll have color and non-autos and all that good stuff. But if there's anyone I missed, if you want to feel free to comment on it, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Big Bob's Cards for more information, and feel free to DM me if you have any questions. Thanks again, and until next time.